The first thing the handyman said after opening the wall was, "You need to come home. Right now. And come alone." His voice wasn't joking. It wasn't curious. It was tight. I was at the grocery store, standing in front of a freezer full of food I didn't need, holding a basket with milk and bread like a man pretending his life was normal. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Just, come," he repeated. "And don't bring anyone." The line went dead. For a second, I stood there, staring at my reflection in the glass freezer door. 42 years old. Widower. Still wearing my wedding ring even though it had been 8 months since the funeral. 8 months since cancer took Sarah. 8 months since I stopped sleeping properly. The house had felt too quiet since she was gone. Too hollow. So I'd finally decided to renovate the old study. She'd always wanted to turn it into a sunroom. I left the cart where it was and drove home. Every red light felt like an accusation. What if something had collapsed? What if the wiring was bad? What if? When I pulled into the driveway, the handyman, his name was Greg, was standing outside, pacing. He looked pale. "Just tell me," I said as I stepped out. He didn't answer. He walked past me into the house. The living room smelled like drywall dust. The plastic sheets we'd taped to the doorway fluttered slightly from the fan. Greg led me into the study. The wall near the old bookshelf had been opened up. Insulation spilled out like yellow cotton. And behind it, there was a metal box, bolted between the studs. I stared at it. "I didn't touch it," Greg said quickly. "I was cutting through to run wiring, and the blade hit something solid. I thought it was a pipe. But it's this." My throat went dry. "Is it old?" "It doesn't look that old," he said. "And it's locked." The box wasn't rusty. It looked deliberate. Carefully placed. My mind started racing. Sarah had lived in this house before we married. She'd inherited it from her aunt. "Did you know about it?" Greg asked quietly. I shook my head. "Okay," he said. "So what do you want to do?" For a long time, I couldn't answer. Then I stepped closer. There was a small keyhole in the front. And taped to the back of the insulation, almost hidden, was an envelope. My name was written on it. In Sarah's handwriting. My knees nearly gave out. Greg noticed. "You want me to leave?" "Yes," I said hoarsely. "Please." He didn't argue. He packed up his tools and left. When the front door shut, the house felt like it was holding its breath. I pulled the envelope down with shaking hands. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "If you're reading this," it began, "then I'm gone. And I'm sorry." My vision blurred. I never wanted secrets between us. But this one was never only mine to tell. I was waiting for the right time. I thought I had more of it. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own breathing. The box in the wall contains the truth about my first marriage. And about Daniel. Daniel. The name hit me like ice water. Daniel was the little boy who used to visit the house once a year. I had always been told he was a distant relative. Her aunt's grandson. He'd stopped coming 3 years ago. I kept reading. "Daniel is my son." The room tilted. I was 19. His father was not a good man. When Daniel was 3, I made the hardest choice of my life. I signed away custody to protect him from the chaos his father created. My aunt helped me. We arranged for him to be raised by her sister in another state, far from everything. My hands were trembling. I told myself it was temporary. But the longer I waited, the harder it became. By the time I met you, I didn't know how to explain. I was ashamed. Ashamed. She had never seemed ashamed of anything. You deserve the truth. And Daniel deserves to know his mother loved him. The key to the box is inside my jewelry case. The false bottom. I lowered the letter. For 8 months, I thought grief had shown me the deepest pain a man could feel. I was wrong. I walked slowly to our bedroom. Her jewelry case was still on the dresser. I hadn't moved it. Opening it felt like opening a wound. I lifted the velvet lining. There it was. A small brass key. I returned to the study. The house was silent except for my heartbeat. The key slid into the lock smoothly. I hesitated. Then I turned it. The click echoed. Inside the box were 3 things. A stack of letters. A birth certificate. And a small, framed photograph. I picked up the photo first. It was Sarah. Younger. Barely out of her teens. Holding a baby. Her smile was tired but fierce. The baby Daniel had her eyes. I sat down hard on the dusty floor. The birth certificate confirmed it. Mother, Sarah Mitchell. Father, Thomas Reed. The letters were all addressed to her. From Daniel. The first one was written in crooked, childish handwriting. Dear Mom. Aunt May says you love me very much. I hope you are okay. I swallowed hard. There were dozens of letters. Spanning years. Some angry. Some confused. Some hopeful. The most recent one was dated 4 years ago. I don't know why you don't want me. I'm trying to understand. Maybe someday you'll tell me the truth. I felt something inside me break. She had kept every letter. Every single one. Why hadn't she told me? Why hadn't she trusted me? I read the last part of her letter again. He turns 18 this November. His address is in the back of the box. If I didn't find the courage, maybe you will. The address was there. A small town 2 states away. I sat in that half-demolished room until the sun went down. The woman I thought I knew completely had carried a secret heavier than anything I imagined. And now it was mine. For 3 days, I didn't sleep. I read every letter twice. I stared at that baby photo until I could almost hear him crying. Then, on the 4th morning, I packed a bag. I drove. The town was small. Quiet. Daniel's address led me to a modest house with peeling paint and a basketball hoop over the garage. I sat in the car for 10 minutes before gathering the courage to knock. A teenage boy opened the door. Tall. Lean. Familiar eyes. Yes, he said cautiously. My mouth went dry. Are you Daniel? He stiffened. Who's asking? My name is Mark, I said. I was your mother's husband. He went pale. She's dead, he said flatly. I know. Silence stretched between us. Why are you here? He demanded. I didn't know how to answer that in one sentence. Can we talk? He hesitated. Then he stepped aside. The house smelled like laundry detergent and old carpet. We sat at the kitchen table. I placed the photo in front of him. He stared at it. I've never seen this, he whispered. She kept it, I said. She kept everything. His jaw tightened. She never came. I know. You don't know, he snapped. I wrote her every year. I thought maybe if I was good enough. His voice cracked. I slid the letters across the table. She read them, I said. Every single one. He looked at me like I might be lying. She was sick, I continued. Cancer. By the time she wanted to fix things, she thought she didn't have the right anymore. She was afraid you'd hate her. I already did, he said, but there were tears in his eyes. We sat there, two strangers bound by the same woman. I didn't know, I said quietly. Until a week ago. He studied me. You're not here to, what, take me somewhere? No. Then why? Because she asked me to. Because she ran out of time. Because someone has to tell you that you were loved. But what I said was simpler. Because you deserve the truth. He looked down at the letters again. She really kept these? Yes. He reached out and touched one like it might disappear. For hours, we talked. About her laugh. About how she burned toast. About how she used to hum when she cleaned. He listened like a thirsty man. When I finally stood to leave, he walked me to the door. I don't forgive her, he said. I know. But, thank you. On the drive home, something in my chest felt lighter. Not healed. But moving. Over the next months, Daniel and I kept talking. Texting at first. Then calls. He came to visit once. Standing in the study, staring at the open wall. She hid it here, he asked. Yes. He nodded slowly. I think she wanted it found, he said. Maybe. We finished the renovation together. Turned it into the sunroom she'd always wanted. We hung her photograph on the wall. Not as a saint. Not as a villain. But as a complicated woman who loved deeply and feared greatly. On the day Daniel turned 18, we planted a tree in the backyard. For new beginnings, he said. I realized something then. Grief doesn't end. It changes shape. That metal box in the wall wasn't a betrayal. It was a door. And when the handyman called and told me to come home alone, he didn't just open a wall, he opened a future I never knew existed. One that included a young man with Sarah's eyes. One that turned my loneliness into responsibility. And maybe into family again.